The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my husband of 10 years press his palm against my best friend's lower back. Such a small gesture, such a familiar touch. I'd seen it 1,000 times before, but tonight, something about it made my stomach turn. My name is Kendall, and this was supposed to be my perfect 10th anniversary party. The string lights twinkled across our backyard, casting golden shadows over the faces of 50 of our closest friends and family. The catering was immaculate, the music just right, and my cream silk dress had cost more than my first car. "Speech," someone called out. "Let's hear from the happy couple." Dean raised his glass, flashing that movie star smile that had made me weak in the knees since college. "To my beautiful wife," he began, but I was distracted by Mallory's expression. She was staring at him with something raw in her eyes, something that didn't belong at a wedding anniversary. "Kendall," Carson's hand touched my elbow, making me jump. "Can we talk? Privately?" I followed him toward the pool house, away from the laughter and clinking glasses. Carson looked sick, his usually confident posture crumpled like he'd been punched. "What's wrong?" I asked, but part of me already knew some truths live in your bones long before they reach your brain. "I can't," he ran his hands through his hair. "God, I can't keep watching this." "You deserve to know." "Know what?" "They've been screwing behind your back since before the wedding." The world didn't stop. The music kept playing. Someone laughed too loudly near the bar, but everything went quiet in my head, like someone had stuffed cotton in my ears. "What are you talking about?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "Dean and Mallory. I overheard them at the Grove 5 years ago. They were drunk, talking about their little getaways. How they had to be more careful." Carson's words tumbled out. "I should have told you then. I'm so sorry." I turned back toward the party. Dean was still talking, something about love and commitment. Mallory stood too close to him, wine glass pressed to her lips to hide her expression. Suddenly, every unexplained business trip crashed through my memory. Every girls' weekend Mallory had invited me to, only to cancel last minute. The text messages I'd glimpsed on Dean's phone that didn't quite make sense. "Are you sure?" I asked, but I was already counting backwards. 10 years of marriage, 12 years of friendship with Mallory. How many lies could fit into a decade? "Kendall?" Dean's voice carried across the yard. "Honey, come here, let's toast." I walked back to him on autopilot, my heels clicking against the stone path. He wrapped his arm around my waist, and I fought the urge to shove him away. "To my gorgeous wife," Dean continued, "who makes every day better just by being in it." Mallory raised her glass with everyone else, but her hand shook slightly. I caught her eye and held it, watching her face pale under my gaze. "To us," Dean finished, pressing a kiss to my temple. I lifted my glass, smile fixed in place. "To truth," I said quietly, and saw Mallory's glass slip from her fingers, shattering against the patio. "Oh God, I'm so clumsy," she laughed nervously, but her eyes were wild when they met mine again. As the party continued around us, as Dean helped clean up the broken glass, as Mallory made excuses about having too much wine, I felt something shift inside me. The Kendall who believed in fairy tales and forever love was dying, right there among the string lights and champagne bubbles. In her place, something colder was taking root. I stood poised with my fresh champagne flute in the golden light of our celebration, watching my husband comfort my best friend over her broken glass, and I knew exactly what I had to do. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I was about to become its favourite assistant. The morning after the party, I kissed Dean goodbye like nothing had changed. "Have a great day at work, honey," I said, watching him adjust his tie in the mirror. He smiled, distracted, already checking his phone. As soon as his car disappeared down the driveway, I went to work. Our home office held 10 years of carefully organised memories, photo albums, planners, receipts. I spread them across the floor like puzzle pieces of my own destruction. Business trip to Chicago, I muttered, flipping through a 2019 calendar. Same weekend, Mallory was visiting her sister. The patterns emerged like neon signs I'd been too blind to see. My phone buzzed. Carson. "How are you holding up?" he asked when I answered. "Peachy. Just discovering my entire marriage was a lie." I picked up a photo from our vacation in Cabo. There was Mallory tanning beside me while Dean took the picture. "Tell me everything you know." Carson sighed. "I was at the Grove, having drinks with some clients. They were in the booth behind me, completely wasted. Mallory was saying how they needed to be more careful because you almost caught them at the lake house." "The lake house?" My throat tightened. "When?" "Last summer. Dean said he'd tell you he was working late, but you showed up with dinner. They barely had time to—" "Stop." I remembered that night. Dean had been showering when I arrived, claiming he'd gone for a run. The living room had smelled like perfume. "Why didn't you tell me then?" "I was scared. Dean's got influence in this town, and I had just started my firm. Plus," he paused, "you seemed so happy." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Yeah, ignorance is bliss until it stabs you in the back." After hanging up, I created a fake Instagram account. Within an hour, I'd found Mallory's check-ins from the past month. The Westbrook Hotel appeared 3 times, always on Wednesdays when Dean had late meetings. My phone buzzed again. Mallory. "Hey, bestie!" "Brunch this weekend?" I stared at her message, my hands shaking. "Can't this weekend. Busy with work stuff." "Oh, miss you. We need to catch up soon." Each heart emoji felt like another knife in my back. I opened my laptop and started digging through Dean's emails. He wasn't very creative with passwords. Our wedding date worked on the first try. "Found you," I whispered, opening a folder labelled Personal Expenses. Hotel charges, jewellery receipts, a wire transfer to an account I didn't recognise. A knock at the door made me jump. I opened it to find Louisa, my younger sister, standing there with 2 bottles of wine. "Carson called me," she said simply. "Thought you might need reinforcements." I hadn't seen Louisa in 3 years, not since our fight about Mom's manipulation. But now she was here, looking at me with understanding instead of judgment. "They've been sleeping together for 10 years, I said, my voice cracking for the first time since last night, since before the wedding. Louisa set the wine down and pulled me into a hug. "Then we're going to make them pay for every single one of those years." We sat among the scattered evidence of my marriage, drinking wine straight from the bottle as I showed her everything I'd found. "Look at this," Louisa said, pointing to a series of credit card statements. "Every time Dean's card shows a hotel charge, Mallory posts about self-care days on Instagram." 10 years of love, spit-polished lies, I muttered, taking another swig. "But I'm not going to confront them. Not yet." Louisa raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" I picked up our anniversary party photo from last night. Dean's arm around my waist, Mallory beaming beside us, or all of us pretending. They took everything from me while I smiled and played the perfect wife. Now I'm going to take everything from them. "How?" I smiled, and it felt like baring teeth. "They want to act? Fine, I'll give them the performance of their lives. But this time I'm directing the show." I grabbed my phone and texted Mallory back. "Actually changed my mind about brunch. Sunday at 11, we have so much to catch up on." "A dinner party?" Louisa looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You want to throw another dinner party?" We were sitting in my kitchen, planning what I'd started calling the Last Supper. 3 days had passed since the anniversary revelation, and I'd maintained my Oscar-worthy performance of the oblivious wife. "Not just any dinner party," I explained, sliding my guest list across the counter. a carefully curated audience for the greatest show they'll never see coming. Louisa scanned the names. Dean's boss, Mallory's boyfriend Lucas, our mother. Are you sure about this? Mum needs to see this. She's the one who pushed me toward Dean, remember? Such a good catch. I mimicked our mother's voice. Don't let this one get away, Kendall. Speaking of Mum, Louisa fidgeted with her coffee cup. She's the reason I stayed away so long. After what she did to me. The trust fund manipulation, I asked softly. She told me I'd only get my share if I married Richard. Said it was for my own good. Louisa's voice cracked. When I refused, she cut me off completely. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm sorry I didn't believe you then. I was so caught up in being the perfect daughter, the perfect wife. While I was the family disappointment, Louisa finished. But look how well being perfect worked out for you. Carson chose that moment to walk in through the back door. He'd been doing that a lot lately, checking on me. The invitations are ready, he announced, placing a stack of cream-coloured envelopes on the counter. But Kendall, are you absolutely sure about this? I opened the safe under my desk and pulled out 3 items, a sealed envelope, a USB drive, and a printed document. This envelope contains every date, every location, every lie they've told for 10 years. I laid it down. This USB has security footage from the Westbrook Hotel. And this, I held up the document, is Dean's confession, though he doesn't know it yet. What do you mean? Louisa leaned forward. I've been recording our conversations. Yesterday I asked him about some suspicious credit card charges. He gave me a very detailed explanation about business dinners and client meetings. All lies, all recorded. Carson ran his hands through his hair. This won't end where you think it will. It'll end exactly where I want it to, I said, addressing the invitations. Next Saturday, 8 people, 1 truth. And what about Mallory? Louisa asked. She's been texting me too, trying to figure out if I know anything. Let her squirm. I sealed the last envelope. She's been playing the concerned best friend all week. Yesterday she brought me lunch to cheer me up because I've seemed distant lately. The nerve, Louisa muttered. My phone buzzed. Dean calling. I put it on speaker. Hey, honey, just checking about Saturday's dinner. Need me to pick up anything? No, everything's arranged. I kept my voice light, pleasant. Just be home by 6. It's important to me. Of course, babe. Love you. After hanging up, I turned to Carson and Louisa. 1 week. That's how long they have left to live their perfect little lies. What if they don't show? Carson asked. They'll show. Dean thinks it's a business dinner with his boss. Mallory thinks it's a charity planning event. Neither knows the other was invited, I smiled. And neither knows I invited Lucas. Mallory's boyfriend, Louisa nodded, the one who has no idea his girlfriend's been sleeping with your husband. Exactly. I stood up and walked to the window, watching the sunset paint the sky blood red. Everyone will be there, the betrayers, the betrayed, and the witnesses. And when I'm done, they'll never recover. Carson touched my shoulder. Just remember, revenge has a price. I turned to face him, my voice steady. So does betrayal, and I've already paid that price in full. I picked up the stack of invitations, each one a bullet in my loaded gun. 10 years of lies were about to meet their end over dinner, and I'd made sure to set the table perfectly. The dining room gleamed like a stage set. Crystal glasses caught the light, white roses centered the table, and 8 place cards waited like loaded weapons. I adjusted Dean's card next to Mallory's, a final cruel joke they didn't yet understand. They're here, Louisa whispered from the window. Dean arrived first, his boss Robert in tow. Then Mallory, wearing a red dress that made my blood boil, followed by an unsuspecting Lucas. My mother Alice swept in with her usual dramatic flair. while Carson slipped in quietly through the back. Laurel, our ever-gossiping neighbour, completed the cast. "Kendall, what's all this?" Dean asked, noticing the formal setup. His eyes darted to Mallory, who had gone pale seeing Lucas there. "Please, everyone take your seats," I said, playing the perfect hostess one last time. "I've prepared something special tonight." The tension was delicious as they found their place cards. Dean stiffened when he saw his seat next to Mallory. Lucas, oblivious, smiled and kissed her cheek before sitting across from them. "Before we begin," I stood raising my glass, "I'd like to read a letter I've written for my husband." "Honey, you don't have to," Dean started. "Oh, but I do." I pulled out the envelope. "Dear Dean, when we met 12 years ago, I thought I'd found my soulmate. You were charming, successful, and so very good at keeping secrets." The room went silent. Mallory's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. "Like the secret of September 15th, 2013, when you told me you were at a conference in Denver, but your credit card showed charges at the Lake House Resort. The same weekend, Mallory posted about needing me time at a spa." Lucas turned to Mallory, confusion darkening his features. "Or July 3rd, 2016, when you both disappeared during our beach vacation for 2 hours. You said you were getting ice. Mallory claimed she had a migraine. The hotel security footage I obtained shows you entering room 415 together." "Kendall, stop," Dean warned, but I was only getting started. "But my favourite might be last month's business dinner at the Westbrook Hotel, room 827. I turned to my laptop, connected to the dining room speakers. "Would anyone like to hear what a business dinner sounds like?" "Don't you dare," Mallory whispered. I pressed play. Dean's voice filled the room. "We need to be more careful." "Kendall's been asking questions," Mallory's response. "She suspects nothing. She trusts me completely. That's what best friends are for, right?" Lucas stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. "What the hell is this?" "Lucas, I can explain." Mallory reached for him, but he jerked away. "Mr. Robert," I turned to Dean's boss, "you might be interested in knowing that those expense reports Dean submitted for client meetings, they were actually funding his affair." "I have all the documentation here." Robert's face turned stormy. "Dean, my office, first thing tomorrow." "And, Mom," I faced Alice, who sat rigid in her chair, "still think Dean was such a perfect catch?" The screen behind me lit up with a Zoom call. "Mrs. Woods?" Dean's secretary appeared. "I have those transfer records you requested. Mr. Dean has been moving company funds to an account under Mallory's name for the past 3 years. Dean lunged for his phone, but it was too late. The damage was done. "You psychotic bitch!" Mallory spat, mascara running down her face. "You've ruined everything." "No, honey," I smiled, lifting my glass. "You did that all by yourself. Both of you did. For 10 years you thought you were so clever, so careful. But I saw everything, and now everyone else does too." Lucas stormed out first. Robert followed, already on the phone with the company's legal team. My mother sat frozen, her perfect world crumbling around her designer outfit. "And finally," I stood, lifting my glass one last time, "I'd like to make a toast to the best liars money couldn't buy. May you both rot in the hell you built together." I drained my glass as Dean and Mallory sat there, destroyed and exposed. Louisa squeezed my hand under the table. Carson nodded slowly from his seat. "Dinner's served," I announced to the remaining guests. "I hear revenge is a dish best served cold." The fallout was nuclear. Within a week, Dean's company put him on administrative leave pending investigation. Mallory's Instagram followers dropped by thousands after Lucas posted his own tell-all story. I moved into a downtown hotel suite, letting the divorce lawyers handle the rest. "Have you seen this?" Louisa tossed a magazine on my hotel room coffee table. My tear-stained face graced the cover, clearly photographed during my coffee run yesterday. "Betrayed CEO's wife breaks down," I read the headline and laughed. If only they knew. My phone buzzed. Dean again, his 20th call today. "You should hear his voicemails," I told Louisa, deleting the notification. "He switches between begging for forgiveness and threatening to destroy me every few hours." Speaking of destruction, Louisa pulled up Twitter. Mallory's losing sponsorships left and right. Turns out lifestyle influencers aren't supposed to sleep with their best friends' husbands. A knock at the door interrupted us. Room service wheeled in breakfast, my new normal since the local restaurants had become paparazzi hotspots. "Mrs. Woods?" The young server hesitated. I recognised him, Rylan, who had worked the bar at my anniversary party. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." He glanced around nervously. "I saw your husband last week. At the Capitol Bar. And?" I wasn't surprised Dean was drinking his sorrows away. He wasn't alone, and it wasn't Mallory he was with. The toast I'd been buttering froze halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" "There was a woman, young, maybe mid-20s. They looked intimate." Rylan shifted uncomfortably. "I wouldn't say anything, but after what happened at your party, I thought you should know." After he left, Louisa and I sat in stunned silence. "Could be nothing," she offered. "Maybe a rebound." "No." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Dean doesn't do anything without calculation. Call Carson." Carson arrived within the hour, laptop in hand. "What are we looking for?" "Any woman connected to Dean in the past 6 months. Employee records, social media, anything." We dug through digital paper trails until Louisa gasped. "Here, Fiona Little. She was his assistant until 6 months ago." "I remember her," I said. "Quiet girl, left suddenly for family reasons." Carson pulled up her LinkedIn. 24 years old. Worked for Dean for 2 years. Left with a generous severance package. "Too generous," I muttered, studying the numbers. "Why pay an assistant that much to leave?" My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "You think you know everything? Ask Dean about Fiona and the baby." Mallory," Louisa read over my shoulder. "Throwing Dean under the bus now that she's lost everything." "Baby!" Carson looked up sharply. "You don't think—" I was already dialing my private investigator. "Find everything you can on Fiona Little, especially any medical records from the past 6 months." The next few days were a blur of revelations. Fiona had left the country, but the paper trail was clear. A hefty non-disclosure agreement, medical insurance claims, and a new bank account in the Cayman Islands. "He got her pregnant," I told my lawyer during our update meeting, "then paid her to disappear." "That changes things," she said, making notes, "especially regarding the company investigation. Sexual misconduct with an employee." I stood by the hotel window watching the city lights flicker on as dusk fell. Dean hadn't just betrayed me with Mallory, he'd created a whole pattern of destruction. My phone buzzed again. "Dean, please, we need to talk." "I can explain everything." This time I replied, "No need. Say hello to Fiona for me." His response was immediate. "How did you—" I turned off my phone and faced Louisa and Carson. "I want everything. The house, the accounts, his reputation, all of it." "It might get ugly," Carson warned. "Uglier than sleeping with my best friend for a decade. Uglier than getting his assistant pregnant and paying her to vanish." I shook my head. "He has no idea what ugly looks like yet." "But he's about to find out." I picked up my phone and called my lawyer back. "Remember when you asked what I wanted from the divorce? I've decided. I want to burn his whole world down." "Mum knew," Louisa said, dropping the bombshell over Sunday brunch at my hotel suite. "She knew about Dean's pattern with young assistants. It happened at his last company too." I set down my mimosa. "What? Remember Julia?" His assistant from before we met him. Louisa pulled out her phone, showing me an old news article. She resigned with a similar settlement. Mum helped cover it up because she was so desperate to see you marry into his family. The rage that filled me was arctic. Where is she? At the country club, Sunday tennis, like always. I found my mother exactly where Louisa said, holding court with her usual circle of society wives. Her perfect mask cracked when she saw me approaching. "Kendall, darling!" "Save it!" I grabbed her arm, pulling her aside. "You knew about Dean. About all of it." "Lower your voice," she hissed, smiling nervously at her friends. "Let's discuss this privately." We ended up in her Mercedes, the air conditioning doing nothing to cool my fury. "I did what was best for you," she started. "Best for me? You pushed me into marrying a serial predator." "I pushed you towards security, position, influence." She adjusted her tennis bracelet. "Everything I never had with your father." "What are you talking about?" "Your father did the same thing. Secretary, intern, anyone young enough to make him feel powerful." Her voice turned bitter. "I stayed quiet, kept his image clean, played the perfect wife. I thought you'd be stronger than me, better at controlling him." I laughed, harsh and hollow. "So you let me walk into the same hell you escaped, thinking I could fix it. At least you got 10 good years. 10 years of lies." I slammed my hand against the dashboard. "And not just from Dean, from my best friend, from my own mother. Kendall, did you know about Mallory too?" Her silence was answer enough. "Get out of my life," I said quietly. "You're as bad as they are." Back at the hotel, I found Carson waiting with a thick folder. "Found something interesting," he said. "Dean's been moving money around, not just the payments to Fiona and Mallory. There's a whole network of hidden accounts." I flipped through bank statements, transfer records, offshore deposits. "Send these to his board of directors, anonymously." "Already done." He hesitated. "There's more. Remember that charity foundation he started last year? The one for underprivileged youth? It's a shell. The money goes straight to his private accounts. He's been running a tax fraud scheme for years." My phone lit up with a text from Dean. "We need to talk, please. I'm outside your hotel." I walked to the window. Sure enough, he was standing by his car, looking up at the building. "Should I call security?" Carson asked. "No." I typed a response. "Nothing to talk about. Ask your lawyer about the foundation records I just sent the IRS." I watched him read the message, watched his face contort with rage. He kicked his car tire, screaming silently in the parking lot. "What's our next move?" Carson asked as Dean peeled out of the parking lot. "Call Lucas," I said. "Dean's business partner. Tell him everything about the foundation. He's a major investor. He deserves to know his money was stolen. And Mallory? She's been trying to rebuild her influence, right? Small sponsorships, local boutiques." I smiled coldly. "Send them proof of her involvement in the tax fraud. She knew about it, helped hide the money. Let's see how many brands want to work with a fraudster." My phone rang. My lawyer. "The judge granted the emergency petition," she said. "All assets frozen pending investigation. The house is yours." I hung up and faced Carson. "Tell Louisa to pack her bags. We're going home." "You sure you're ready?" I thought about my mother's confession, about Dean's lies, about the decade of manipulation. "I'm not just ready," I said, gathering my things. "I'm taking back everything they stole from me, and then some. And Fiona, the baby." I paused at the door. "One battle at a time. First we burn it all down, then we'll see what grows from the ashes." The corporate boardroom fell silent as I walked in, stilettos clicking against marble. Dean's face went ash white when he saw me. "Mrs. Woods," Robert gestured to an empty seat, "thank you for coming to address the board." "Please," I smiled, setting down my folder. "Call me Kendall. After all, we're about to become very close." "You can't be here." Dean started to stand. This is a private meeting. Actually, I pulled out a document. As of this morning, I own 30% of company shares. Amazing what you can do with frozen assets and a good lawyer. The board members shifted uncomfortably. I could smell their fear of scandal, of public embarrassment, of losing everything they'd built. Let's talk about the foundation. I opened my folder, specifically where all that charitable donation money really went. 2 hours later, I walked out of the building as Dean was escorted to his office to clean out his desk. His company phone had already been disconnected, his email disabled, his access cards deactivated. My own phone buzzed. Louisa. "Turn on channel 7. I pulled it up on my phone. Mallory's tear-stained face filled the screen as reporters swarmed her outside her apartment. "Miss Thompson, what's your response to allegations that you helped hide millions in fraudulent charity funds?" "No comment," she choked out, trying to shield her face. "Is it true you were having an affair with Dean Woods while helping him embezzle money?" I switched off the video, satisfaction warming my chest. My phone dinged with another message, this time from Lucas. "Just filed charges against Dean for investor fraud. Thought you'd want to know." The dominoes were falling perfectly. I headed home. My home now, legally and completely. Louisa was waiting in the kitchen with champagne. "The Interior Design magazine called," she said, popping the cork. "They want you for next month's cover. Rising from the ashes, Design Queen takes back her crown." Perfect timing. I took a glass. The renovation company's paperwork came through this morning. "We're officially partners." "Speaking of partners," Louisa nodded toward the window where a familiar car was pulling up. "Incoming." Mallory stumbled up the walkway, mascara streaked down her face. I opened the door before she could knock. "Please," she sobbed, "you have to help me. They're destroying me out there. My sponsors, my followers, I have nothing left." Funny how karma works, isn't it? "I'm sorry. I was jealous." "You had everything. The perfect life, the perfect house, the perfect husband. I wanted to prove I could take it all away." I laughed, cold and clear. "Oh, honey, you didn't take anything. You just showed me exactly what I needed to see." "Kendall, please. Goodbye, Mallory." I closed the door on her tears. Later that evening, Carson brought over Chinese food and news. Dean's being investigated by the SEC. The foundation fraud triggered a deeper look into all his dealings. Good. I picked up my chopsticks. And the house in the Cayman Islands? Seized, along with all the hidden accounts. My phone lit up with a news alert. CEO Dean Woods steps down amid fraud allegations. Company stocks plummet. "You did it," Louisa said softly. "You actually did it." "Not quite." I pulled up my email, showing them the draft of my tell-all book proposal. "Now I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. Every lie, every betrayal, every scheme. The publishers will fight over this," Carson whistled, reading the outline. "They already are." I sipped my wine. 3 offers this morning alone. A final text came through from Dean. "You've destroyed everything I built." I typed back, "No, you did that yourself. I just exposed the truth." Enjoy prison. Looking around my newly renovated living room at Louisa arranging flowers in the vase that used to hold Mallory's favourites, at Carson sprawled comfortably on the couch that Dean once claimed as his territory, I felt something settle in my chest. To karma, I raised my glass, and to new beginnings. To the Queen, Louisa clinked her glass against mine. Long may she reign. Outside I could hear reporters still camped at the end of my driveway, hungry for more details of the scandal. Let them wait. This story was mine to tell, and I was just getting started. The gallery buzzed with opening night energy as I walked through my first solo exhibition. Reassembled featured photographs of broken things made beautiful again, shattered mirrors, cracked vases, splintered furniture. Each piece told its own story of destruction and rebirth. "The critics are raving," Louisa appeared at my elbow, phone in hand. "They're calling it a stunning meditation on transformation through trauma." "If they only knew," I smiled, adjusting my black cocktail dress. The centerpiece of the exhibition stood in a glass case, my wedding china, meticulously broken and reformed into a sculpture. The plaque read, "The woman who said nothing until she said everything." "Ms. Woods?" A young woman approached, clutching an envelope. "I'm Fiona's sister." My heart skipped. "Is she? She's still in London, but she wanted you to have this." She handed me the envelope. "She says you deserve to know everything." Inside was a letter and a photograph. A baby girl, maybe 6 months old, with Dean's eyes. "Her name is Grace," the sister said softly. "Fiona wants no contact with Dean, no money. She just thought you should know the truth." I studied the photo, feeling strangely calm. "Tell her thank you." "And tell her," I paused, "tell her Grace is lucky to have a mother strong enough to walk away." As the sister left, Carson appeared with fresh champagne. "Dean's sentencing is tomorrow." 8 to 10 years, I nodded, "for fraud, embezzlement and tax evasion." "Mallory took a plea deal," Louisa added. 2 years probation in exchange for testimony. "And Mom, still in Arizona at that wellness retreat. Her therapist says she's finally dealing with Dad's affairs." I moved to the window overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, a baby girl would grow up without knowing her father. Somewhere else, my mother was finally facing her demons. And here I stood, surrounded by beautiful broken things. "Ms. Woods," a gallery assistant approached. "There's someone here to see you. Says she's an old friend." In the doorway stood Mallory, thinner and stripped of her former glamour. "Your work is beautiful," she said quietly. "What do you want?" "To apologize, really apologize." She twisted her hands together. "I was so busy hating you for having everything I wanted. I never realized I was the one destroying myself." "Jealousy's a poison," I said. "It kills everything it touches." "I know that now." She turned to leave, then stopped. "The baby. Did you know?" "I do now." "I'm sorry for that too." For all of it. I watched her walk away, her designer heels replaced by sensible flats, her influence reduced to whispers of scandal. Some broken things weren't meant to be reassembled. "You okay?" Carson squeezed my shoulder. "Better than okay." I raised my glass to the crowded gallery. "I'm free." The exhibition continued around us, people admiring the broken, beautiful things, discussing transformation and resilience. My phone buzzed with a message from my publisher. The book was hitting shelves next week. 2 new chapters. Louisa clinked her glass against mine. "To truth," Carson added. "To Grace," I said softly, thinking of a baby girl in London who would never know how her existence helped unveil a decade of lies. I moved through my gallery of shattered things made whole again, each piece reflecting a different kind of strength. The woman who entered that anniversary party died that night, but the one who emerged from the ashes was stronger, sharper, more real. Some would call it revenge. I called it justice, and justice, like healing, comes not in the breaking, but in what you build from the pieces left behind. I touched the glass case holding my reconstructed wedding china. The cracks were visible, deliberate, part of its new beauty, just like mine.